Hello, thanks for tuning in. My name's Stuart, otherwise known on this channel as the Unrepentant Atheist. I'm responding to Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists. This was presented by an organisation called Jubilee. I must admit, an organisation I hadn't even heard of, but anyway, it was an interesting setup to have Jordan Peterson sitting in the middle and have surrounded by 20 atheists, and I believe that video has pulled in about 5 million views so far, which I suppose really is extraordinary. Continue to be impressed by the high numbers of people who are viewing atheist content and counter-apologetics, Christian content, etc. It's phenomenal, really. So yeah, 20 atheists. Now I'm not going to go through every single exchange. One or two stood out. Just one or two things to start with, though. As an atheist in a sort of online atheist community, I found it a little embarrassing to see atheists running and scrambling to be the one that's going to sit in the chair and challenge the great Jordan Peterson, who clearly from his demeanour seems to believe that he is indeed a great man. Okay, well, who knows, maybe in 20, 30, 40 years in the future posterity will rate him as a great man, but so far I don't think he's a great man, but having said that, he has a lot of fans who do. So now then, one of the problems that we've had with Jordan Peterson as atheists in particular, and really I would say that Christians should have this same problem, is that he's never really clear about where he stands on many issues. And if I was a Christian, I would have this issue. I would have a big problem with Jordan Peterson, and I believe that a lot of Christians do, but nevertheless he's got a huge Christian fan base, because I think it's perceived that he is a theist and he's on their side. However, I wouldn't be so confident after this showing. So let's just start with the first question. So the claim that Jordan Peterson's making is that atheists don't know what they are rejecting, or atheists don't understand what they are rejecting. I've been told this myself. Stuart, you don't understand the God that you're rejecting. You haven't got a good enough grasp of the characteristics of this God in order to reject him. Now, quite recently, I had somebody on my channel leaving comments all over the place, copying and pasting all over the place, saying, "You atheists, you're not being rational. God is not a sky daddy. You're rejecting the sky daddy, so you're not really rejecting God at all. God's not a sky daddy. God is something completely different from that. You don't understand what it is you're rejecting." Okay, if anybody comes to me with that, I'm going to say, well, make me understand. Make me understand what your conception of God is, and I'll assess it. And if you still don't think I understand, then maybe try harder. So Jordan Peterson is making this generalization, this blanket claim on all atheists, that we don't know what we're rejecting. Of course, I accept that it's a bit of sort of exaggeration, and he said himself that it was like a generic claim, that in his experience, atheists come from a particular background, they've been hurt by religion or hurt by God, and there were lots of claims there, and that consequently we're rejecting God for the wrong reasons. So first of all, this thing that we don't understand the God we're rejecting, and I thought it was a very good point that that his interlocutor made, and he brought up some obscure God. Have you heard of this God? No. Do you understand this God? No. So, well, do you reject this God? Well, you see, that's the thing. You can't really reject something until you've been presented with it. And I mean, you can reject it. How do you prove that you've got a good understanding of a particular God concept. That's the whole problem with this Peterson claim. So how would Peterson prove that we atheists don't understand what it is that we're rejecting? I would think it's a claim as virtually as difficult to prove as proving that God himself exists. I would probably switch that on Peterson and ask him if he believes in God. Is he confident that he understands the God that he believes in? And he might well then say yes to that. And then he could say to me, yeah, but you don't understand the God that you're rejecting. And I'd have to say, well, prove it. So it's a question that can't really go anywhere. How are you going to prove that somebody doesn't understand the God that's been presented to them? He did make one good point, or at least something good came out of it, that there are thousands of God claims out there, and one can't be expected to know and understand all of them. So I don't really quite see that his claim really is constructive at all. It really just seems to be like a slap in the face to atheists. And as his interlocutor pointed out, atheists on the whole probably understand more, or at least let's say atheist activists anyway, not sort of general everyday atheists out there, but atheists who are online or take atheism seriously possibly understand more about, shall we say, the characteristics of the Christian God, the triomni God, for example. If you ask your average Christian coming out of a church, define me your God, what are the characteristics of your God? I mean, a lot of them probably don't even know what the triomni God is. They probably won't be able to say. They might just say, oh, he's a powerful being, created the universe, and he came down to earth as Jesus Christ. Probably, I mean, they might not be able to adequately define the God that is kind of encapsulated by Christianity. And yet, atheists do. So, you could say atheists don't know what they're rejecting, but you could also say maybe, as I said, I don't think you can prove that, and I don't really think that claim has any value to it, and probably neither would the claim that the majority of Christians out there probably don't understand the God that they accept. So overall, I don't really think that this was a constructive question, and I don't really think that much positive came out of it. So let's move on. All right. So, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So of course, there was a question on morality. Or the claim from Peterson is that morality and purpose cannot be found in science. Well, that's a bit of a lame one, really, isn't it? I mean, that's something that atheists wouldn't really have a problem with that claim, I would think. It's not the purpose, it's not the job of science to prescribe morality and purpose. So it's a bit of a lame claim that he made. Nevertheless, the discussion went on to the slavery in the Bible, the slaughters, the bloodshed that goes on in the Bible. And Peterson came back and said, well, slavery was common to virtually all societies at the time, the Bible in biblical times. So why do you have to give Christians, why do you have to give the Bible a hard time about that? Well, yeah, maybe there was slavery all over the world, but we've got here a holy book that is supposed to be inspired by God. And, you would think that if the Jews were making that claim, that this God would be the ultimate moral base and would be able to say in the Bible, in the Ten Commandments, that slavery is immoral. But it doesn't happen. What we see instead is a list of regulations on how masters should treat their slaves, implying that the Bible condones slavery. So I don't really think that Peterson was really got to grips with the problem that was presented there. But we saw him quite frequently sort of ducking and diving and shuffling uncomfortably sometimes, trying to avoid the implication of you know, the belief that, or the reality that if there was a God, this would be the case. And in the case of morality, whatever God says goes. Okay, so, right, yeah, oh yes, yeah. It was put to him about lying. Yeah, I wish I'd made better notes, I apologise, but it's coming back to me. It was put to him, so Peterson was saying that he could not tell a lie, and the interlocutor said, well, what about in the case of Anne Frank? Are you saying you would never lie about your beliefs? You would never lie about your beliefs, or you would never lie about something in order to save a human life? And I think very dishonestly he said, well, I would avoid putting myself in that situation, rather than just accept the hypothetical and say, yes, I see your point. In that situation, a situational kind of ethics or moral dilemma, one would have to tell a lie to prevent a greater evil. So the lie is a kind of evil, and the consequences of not lying is another evil. In other words, Anne Frank's family were captured and most of them died. That's another kind at the hands of the Nazis. That's another kind of evil. So which is the greater evil? Well, it's got to be several people dying at the hands of the Nazis, and I could avoid this situation by telling a lie. And so the lie is a more moral thing to do. But no, what Peterson says is that he would not, in that situation, he would avoid getting into that situation. Well, what if you found yourself? I'm sure that the people who have found themselves in these situations have not gone looking for them. They've been sort of incidental and just happened, and they didn't really have much power over it. So all the time he's ducking and diving and shuffling around and trying to avoid answering the questions, which is sort of normal form for Jordan Peterson. So yeah, somebody, I'm not sure if it was that interlocutor or somebody else, asked Peterson, are you a Christian? And he said, well, I don't have to answer that question. I mean, what's the big deal? What is the big deal? I've never, or not never, but I've very rarely met anybody online or anywhere else that if I ask them, not a question I often ask, but if I was in a situation where I was talking about religion with somebody and I said, are you a Christian? And if they said to me, I don't have to answer that question, I would just cut the conversation dead and say, okay, if you don't want to reveal something about yourself which might help me to understand your perspective, then what's the point in having a conversation? There's obviously no trust there, so let's just cut the conversation short. I don't have any problems telling people that I'm an atheist, and I don't see why Jordan Peterson would have problems telling people that he is either a Christian or he isn't. I mean, he really said something really strange when the interlocutor said, you're a Christian, aren't you? And I think he said something like, well, there are a lot of people out there that are wondering about that, or a lot of people out there who think I am, or I mean, why not just answer the question? Why sort of dodge the question and create a diversion? That's something that I can never really get to grips with in Peterson's approach. Why the secrecy? I mean, we've got this problem with divine hiddenness, and with Peterson, we've got Peterson's reluctance to, or refusal to state what his position is. Maybe it is that once you've said what you believe, you've made a claim. Once you've made a claim, you've got to defend it. And I think in Peterson's case, I mean, look, I don't think he's a Christian. Based on all his comments about Jungian psychology and everything, and the collective unconscious being, you know, a thing, and God, I don't think that Peterson is a Christian, and I don't know why he can't just say, look, okay, I'm not a Christian, however, I follow Christian ethics, I follow Christian morality. You see, Peterson said that Christianity is the foundation of Western civilization. Well, one can't deny that it's been important, but I always thought that Roman civilization and the Greeks were the ultimate basis of Western civilization. The ideas, the philosophy, the politics, all these things came from the Greeks and the Roman. Yeah, the Greeks and the Romans. They didn't come from Christianity, and I mean they didn't come from the Jews or anything like that. So I'd probably have to ask Peterson to qualify his statement there. Christianity has been important in Western civilization, but I don't think you can say that it's the foundation of Western civilization. I think that the Greek and the Roman influence is more important. So let me see, where were we? Okay, so then we came to this. Yeah, we came to this thing about worship. Yeah, what is it to worship? Okay, now look, Peterson defined worship as prioritizing. Well, I mean, look, we all prioritize certain things, but to say that we worship them, worship has got a certain connotation, and that connotation is a religious connotation. I mean, it's beyond revering something. Christians don't just revere Jesus, it's something way beyond that, and that's worship. I mean, you can revere, I revere certain artists in history, certain musicians in history, but I don't get down on my knees and pray to these artists. I prioritize them because certain music that I listen to, yeah, I prioritize that music, but I don't worship it in anything like the same way that if I was a Christian I would worship Jesus. So this is another disingenuous. What Peterson's trying to do is say, you atheists, you think that we're all stupid, that we're all worshipping, we're getting down on our knees. Muslims are bending to Mecca, and Christians are falling to their knees and kissing the feet of Jesus. But you also worship. That's what he's trying to say. Yeah, I mean, in a way he's trying to say, you atheists, you're as stupid as we are. It's like atheists have got faith too. And it's the same thing. Yeah, they're trying to say, he's trying to say, everybody worships, and you worship too, even if you don't know it. You worship science. Yeah, we worship Jesus or Allah. You worship science. Well, let's just say this, that if I worship science, so does Peterson, right? But he adds one thing, or at least if he's a theist, theists add an all-powerful supreme being, the existence of which has not been confirmed. So yeah, we both worship science. If you want to say worship and use it like that, you can use a word like worship and you could take all the meaning out of it. You can make the word useless. I mean, look, you can say that this mouse is really important for my computer. I worship this mouse. I mean, the word has now become completely useless. We use the word worship in a religious context. And because I've got a lot of trust and confidence in science, doesn't mean to say that I worship it, any more than a Christian who has the same attitude to science worships that science. The Christian's got something to truly worship, Jesus, God, the Trinity. I don't have that in anything like the same way. I don't get down on my knees to worship anything. Okay, so let's see. All right, and then Peterson made this strange statement that I've written it down because I was trying to make sense of it about being a Christian. Yeah, what is it to be a Christian? Okay, well, I know what it is to be a Christian. Yeah, you've got to believe in the Trinity. You've got to believe in God, believe in the Trinity. You've got to believe that Jesus was God incarnate. You've got to believe that Jesus truly bodily resurrected, not a metaphorical resurrection. And you've got to believe that Jesus is the path to salvation. And salvation doesn't mean salvation on earth. It means salvation after death in the afterlife. That's part of being a Christian, but that's got to be the absolute core of it. But no, what is it to be a Christian? Peterson says it's to accept. This is where the bullshit comes in. I mean, I think he just makes these things up on the spot because he thinks they sound good. is to accept that the cosmos was founded on the principle of self-sacrifice. Well, explain that one to me. I mean, how could that be? Founded. Okay, well, who founded the cosmos? Well, the Almighty God. And in what way was it founded on the principle of self-sacrifice? What did God sacrifice when he created the cosmos? Nobody asked Peterson that question, unfortunately. And there were many questions that people didn't ask Peterson that they might have done. But hey, we're all kicking ourselves. And if I'd been there, I might have forgotten to ask him that question as well. Okay, and then just to finish off here, he made this statement: atheists reject Bible stories, but accept Christian morality. Well, I mean Christian morality, I wouldn't necessarily say I accept all of Christian morality, because, well, I won't go into that exactly, but there are some aspects of Christian morality which I think are questionable. And I mean, it's part of Christian morality, from what a lot of Christians tell me, not to accept homosexuals. That homosexuality is a sin, it's immoral. So in that sense, I don't accept Christian morality, because I don't accept that homosexuality is immoral. So again, Peterson's making these sweeping claims about atheists. I mean, in the sense that I reject Bible stories, no. I don't reject Bible stories. The only things that I don't believe in about Bible stories are the miracle claims. Yeah, just the miracles. I've got no problem accepting the entire Old Testament and New Testament. I can say, all right, I accept it, or at least I don't deny it. But I've got problems with anything supernatural, anything miraculous, and the resurrection, the virgin birth. It's not much really. Look, I mean, it's a book that size, and I'm only rejecting a tiny little part of it. But anyway, the thing about Christian morality is that we had these moral codes around before Christians, before the Old Testament, before the Ten Commandments. We have these codes in various societies. So it's only Christian in the sense that Christians adopted it from people that came before them. Okay, well, that's it overall. Thanks a lot for watching, and I've only covered a small part. I mean, I could be here for hours talking about it, but just some of the points that stood out for me. But once again, I find it disappointing that Peterson won't just be straight and just come out and say properly what he believes. Is he a Christian? Isn't he? Does he believe in a literal resurrection? Because I don't want to hear back from him, well, first you have to say, what do you mean? What do we mean by believe? What do we mean by resurrection? And then I'll say, well, what do we mean by what? What do we mean by do? I mean, you can go back and you can start analysing what all the word means ad infinitum. It's clearly a diversion, an attempt to shut down discussion. Okay, that's enough from me. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.